Welcome to Legend Makers, the podcast where education's true heroes take center stage.
Shine like a ray from the sun. There's something people look for but never can find.
All right, welcome back to the Legend Makers podcast. I've got with me in front of me, this is Amy Parks. Hi, Amy.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to talk to you because you and I have been kind of bouncing around in the online world, knowing each other. I think since I started, it must be four years or 5 years or so now.
That's
Yeah,
about when we got started here in the STEM realm of things.
Yeah,
as
so
well.
let's talk about that. So I'm going to introduce you. So you are the Innovation Lab teacher at Forts Ferry Elementary at North Colonie, CSD. That's New York?
It is upstate New York. We're a suburb of Albany.
You're up near Albany. It's beautiful out there today, isn't it?
It is. I'm looking out the window right now. It's finally gorgeous. I hope it
Right
stays.
here. It's going to stay. As soon as we're done here, I'm taking the dogs for a walk because I need to
All
get
right.
outside and get some fresh air. But yeah, this is great. So let's get right into it. So tell me about your role there as a STEM. I really love the whole idea for STEM. So I don't get to talk to too many STEM teachers. I mean, I talk to everybody, but on this podcast, I get all kinds. So when we get right into STEM, which is where my world is, and Drone Legends is right in that STEM space, I really like to dive into it. How did you get involved in STEM? What's your background there?
So, well, my background is, so I came to North Colonie to teach in their gifted program,
Mhm.
which was 15 years ago, very humanities-based program.
Okay.
And we in-house did advanced math. We did the humanities enrichment. And then I also, on the opposite end, had remedial math.
Okay.
And it was decided in a district decision to split the math and the enrichment. So I should preface, we have 6 elementary schools. So there were 6 of us.
Okay. You have 6
Did
in the
what I
district
did.
there? Mhm.
Yep. They split us up and hired a math specialist for each building. And then 2 of us traveled and did enrichment in all 6 buildings,
Okay.
which was fun, but stressful traveling to, I took 3 buildings. My teaching partner took 3 buildings. And the great part was we designed our own curriculum. And we kind of were asked to move away after a couple of years from the humanities, and STEM was just coming up
Mhm.
in the world at the
Yeah.
elementary level. So they're like, hey, why don't you focus more on this?
Oh, cool.
So
Okay.
we did that. And then that's what I was doing until the pandemic hit.
So you were doing all STEM
All
innovation lab.
STEM enrichment. We were grades 3 through 6 at the time.
Yep.
So I would rotate through the schools and see all those grade levels at 2 days in each building
During class day or after school?
during the class day. So the
As
kids
an
would be
enrichment,
pulled
as
out.
kind of like an
Yep.
enrichment special track carve out?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, great.
Yes, the students have to test into the program and all that.
Oh, okay,
That's
great.
a whole nother conversation. But then the pandemic hit, and we had started talking district-wide about kind of what we were doing in the enrichment program is the way all kids should be learning,
Mhm.
with the hands-on, more science-based, bringing in the technologies. So we had started to have those district conversations.
Yeah.
And then when the pandemic hit, we got very serious about it because all of a sudden the districts were getting all this money.
Right.
And
The upside
that's
to the
when it was
pandemic, right?
yeah, that's when it was decided that each elementary school would get an innovation lab because they were already
Okay.
doing some building renovations, computer labs that weren't being used anymore, were converted over into our STEM lab, but they call them the innovation labs here.
Okay, great. So COVID funded innovation labs.
COVID funded innovation labs.
Interesting. I'd like to know where what's happening today. We'll get to that. You chuckle.
So yeah, that's kind of my long way around to landing in STEM. I've always loved science.
Mhm.
So That's not where I started out when I
Yeah,
first went to college, but that's where I ended up and wanted to fuse my love for science with working with kids and
great. That's
landed
great.
here.
Excellent. So now do you have counterparts at each of the 6 elementary schools in your
Yes.
district? So
Yep.
each school has an innovation center, innovation lab, and then each lab has a STEM
Teacher.
director, teacher there.
Yep.
Interesting. And there are 6 of them.
And there's
So
6,
great. So the program now, 5 years, well, really 4 years
4 years.
past COVID.
Yeah.
How are things running today? I mean, so that kind of got kicked up during COVID, but everybody was gone, right? So this came in right after. So everybody was doing
Well, it
online.
was all planned out during that year of COVID,
Mm-hmm.
when we were only allowed to have like 12 kids in a class and half were at
Right.
home and half. Um,
Yeah.
so we didn't fully start it up until the following year.
Yeah.
So when everybody was back to school, that was our first year of Innovation Lab, which was kind of a trial and error year for
Mm-hmm.
us.
Yeah.
We found some things worked, some things didn't work. Originally, they wanted to have us design all the lessons that the teachers would then come into the lab to teach. And we were like,
Uh-huh.
whoa, that's not going to work. Like, you need someone in there. If
Uh-huh.
the teachers have to do extra work on top of it, they're not coming.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
So we convinced them that we needed a dedicated person in each lab,
Mm,
um, which luckily they went along with.
right.
And our program is kind of interesting because we're not a lot of programs that have STEM are under the specials umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
And we are lucky, lucky, unlucky, I don't know. The classroom teachers come and stay with their class while they're with us.
Hmm. Interesting. So the kids come
So
in as a class with you
the
and their
kids come
teacher
in
is with them.
and the teachers stay with them.
Okay.
We don't necessarily co-teach, but it's some of the teachers are very hands-on and like
Mm-hmm.
jump in and help out. Others
Yep.
take it as a time to bring their grading and sit in the back corner
And hang
and
out and
grade their
grade.
papers.
Okay.
Um,
Do you have a preference? Do you have a preference or do you like
Definitely have, like, there's days I need the extra set of hands
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm, yeah.
probably wouldn't take on some of the projects that we do if I
If you
didn't have
didn't.
that
Yeah,
extra set of hands.
for sure.
Um,
Yeah.
but what's really neat is, since a lot of the hands-on learning has been taken out of the classrooms right now,
Mm-hmm.
this is where the teachers get to see the collaboration and the kids in a different light. And I
Yeah.
think it really helps some of them. They're like, this is great. Like, I wouldn't be able to grade this on the report card if I wasn't in here seeing what they're doing. So from that
Yeah.
standpoint, I think it's great that the teachers get to see the kids in a different
In,
situation.
in
And
a whole different situation. Sure.
yeah, and
Hands-on
some
learning.
kids that struggle academically really do well with figuring out how to build and put things together.
Tell me about that. So that's cool. I want to talk about that for a minute. So that really, you just struck a chord because there are those kids that I love this whole idea that teacher brings their kids in. Those kids are in that environment, in the teacher's environment, they're testing and they're doing math and ELA and this. All of a sudden walk into the innovation lab and you've got robotics and coding and hands-on and makerspace and things like this going on. And some of the kids that may struggle under the other model, maybe all of a sudden we see a different person over here because now they're a round peg in a round hole.
Yep.
And they found their place and they're all of a sudden blossomed and blooming. But the teacher gets to see this and maybe has a new perspective about that student and
Absolutely.
probably treats that student differently as a result, knowing the potential that's within that child
Mhm.
and having seen it firsthand in a different environment. So it's environmental, not necessarily the child. That's really cool.
Exactly. And the ones that really struggle the most are those kids who are really good students and do well academically, because Now I'm not telling them every step they have to do. Like they have
Yeah.
to figure things out, but they like to be told what to do. They're really good at following those directions and doing what they're told to do. But all of a sudden it's open-ended and anything can happen and it doesn't always work out, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's
better
really hard for
than
some of them,
okay.
especially the first year we started the program. Now that we're in it,
Yeah.
for this is our fourth year, you're really
Yep.
starting to see those kids that we've had kindergarten, first grade, second grade, now they're in third grade, and they're like, oh, that didn't work. Let's go and try this. Whereas
Love
first
it.
grade, they would be in tears and like not being able to handle it.
That's so I'm reading the Anxious Generation book by, did you read this book by
I
Jonathan
have
Haidt?
not yet. It is on my list.
So good. It's
Is it?
it's scary. It's sad. It's sad in a lot of ways. But it answers a lot of questions. I just,
Yep.
what you just said there. So there's one analogy in the book that I absolutely love. I can't stop thinking about it because I was explaining it to my colleague and he goes, oh, that's the best. So the biosphere study, remember back in like the 90s, they were trying to set up, if we lived on Mars or if we lived on the moon, we would have to live under a biosphere. And they did a trial. They did a study. They put people inside a
Yep.
biosphere and they had to make their own water and grow their own food and raise their own trees. And I don't know how much truth there is to this, but here was the story in the book is that ultimately the experiment didn't work, but they grew some trees but the trees were toppling over. They looked beautiful, but they were falling. And they didn't really understand why. And when they looked deeper, they thought, oh, here's the problem. They were never exposed to wind as saplings. And so the roots never took hold.
Ah,
And so what was proven out is that trees that they need wind because it helps their roots to get stronger and dive deeper. And the tallest trees that they have the deepest, strongest roots. And they don't get blown over by wind. They hold. Um, and the redwoods actually hold hands underneath, if you know that. Their roots connect. So
oh, that's
it's
cool.
really cool. So the tree analogy was great because, and in the book, he's arguing that we're not giving our kids gusts of wind, but you are. And so to bring it back to full circle, so your first grader who is frustrated in the beginning, that's good, right? Like that's the wind, the open ended,
Yep.
the just go and figure it out. Free play is what this guy advocates. It's like we've taken the kids out of unsupervised. I'm sure yours is, of course, but unsupervised, unstructured play. And the kids learn that way and they have to resolve conflict and they have to deal with failure and setback and someone will emerge as quote unquote the leader. Others might emerge as more of the workers and doers. Others might be more planners. And so these students, but in the process, they're finding their way. And in the beginning, it's frustrating, but year 3, they're growing roots, right?
Yep.
And so, because you just told the story, now your third grader who at first grade would have been in tears and
Oh, I
if that
lost you for
makes
a second.
sense.
Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. So I was like, it's just the wind. It's just the wind
Yeah,
blowing and it's making us stronger. I love that.
absolutely. And we have taken any struggle away from students. Like we
Oh
don't,
yeah.
we're afraid to let them struggle. And we have kids here in fourth and fifth grade that don't know how to play playground games.
Yeah.
Like,
It's not
but
good.
like, I'm like, what happened to Red Rover, Red Rover? They have no
Yeah.
idea. Like, they don't come up with games. Like, they'll just sit there
Because
outside.
they're used to being entertained.
Yeah, because they have to be constantly entertained. And I
Mm.
love that in the lab. I'm like, no, I'm not your entertainment here. You have to do the work. You have to
Yeah.
figure it out.
Good. Good for you. More of that. More labs. Our kids need more labs.
Well,
What is
and
so?
the
Yeah.
great thing would be is if they were able to do this all the time in the classroom, if there was time for it.
Heck yeah. Oh yeah. I think much more of it and lots of playtime and not seat time. That's what these kids don't need. Seats and screens not really good for these kids.
Kindergarten doesn't play
Um,
anymore in the classroom.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Well, we
Like,
were told when we were building our Little Legends program, the first thing we were told was you can do what you want to do. Just don't put screens in it. Like get them off of screens. These kids
Yep.
they don't know how to play together anymore. They've lost the capacity to play. So we built in play, just game time, play time.
Yeah. That's
Wow. I think we're going to see, I hope that we're going to see a counter to this. I mean, it's really, truly I'm an early Gen Xer. Gosh, I'm almost a boomer. I looked at the days the other day. It's like 64 was boomer. Well, like I'm 66, so I'm really more of a boomer. Ugh, am I really? I thought I was an Xer. I thought I was like a full-on Gen Xer. I'm a Gen Xer. I choose to be a Gen Xer. But it's my generation that started this whole helicopter parenting and over parenting is what they call it. Safe spaces. And I hate to use that term to sound negative, but we were just trying to protect, right? Because I think we had interesting childhoods where we weren't seen at all. My generation, my parents were divorced. My mom at 9, 10, my brother and I just ran around. Summertime, we had somebody we checked in with down the street. Like I woke up to like cereal on the table and milk in the fridge at like 10. Oh, we got in a lot of trouble. no bros about it. We broke bones and we heard, we got into trouble. We came home at the end of the day. We came home muddy, ticks in our hair. We were a wreck. We lived in the woods all day. We were like Lord of the Flies down in those woods. But
you were
I think
outside all day.
All day.
And you had to figure it out. It
was great.
I love the memes that you see, like with a pile of bikes outside a house, and like, this is how we knew where everybody was.
Or somebody's jumping over them like Evil Knievel, right? Flying over them. That's right. How did we know where everybody was? Bikes. And I think the counter, what happened is my generation was like, well, as much as we look back on that fondly, very fondly, I think, oh my gosh, what a fun childhood I had. There might have been some part of us that were like, well, we missed our parents though. And maybe we overcompensated and went the other way, right? You tend to those pendulums, kind of all these big swings. And we ended up going over, we're always here. We're always here. We're always here. You're not alone. You're not alone. You're always got somebody there, but kids don't want that. And I'm sure there's a happy medium somewhere, right? There's a balance.
Yeah.
So,
hopefully.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I think the work to bring it back to what you're doing there at school is I think important work. I think it's not just STEM. So I think what you do is broader than STEM. I think it's character building. It builds that resilience, that trial and error, that mindset of not everything's going to work and persistence pays off. And kids are curious, and we should, push that curiosity further, right? I think kids are naturally curious, and give them the space to be curious in.
That's an interesting thing, because have you ever read the book What Not to Expect? It's by Dr. Keith Fromm. And I read it years ago.
What Not to Expect, huh?
Yes. It's kind of a parenting book, but as an educator, I came across it. And the one thing that struck me in his book, and now I read this 10 years ago, kids are naturally curious. They wonder about everything. They're incessant questioners. And parents often say, oh my gosh, they won't stop asking questions.
Right.
They come into us full of wonder, full of questions, full of curiosity. They want to know how everything works, how everything goes together. And then we tell them to stop asking questions and sit and listen.
Right.
And we kill that curiosity. Quickly. And it's really sad.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So fast. Because by the time they're in second and third grade, they're not asking questions anymore. They're not naturally curious. And it stinks.
Yeah, because you raise non-curious adults. And I think you've always got to be curious, don't you? I mean, love to learn.
I could just take college classes. Like when I was helping my own kids look at colleges, and I was looking through course catalogs and seeing the courses that are available now, I'm like, I didn't have these choices.
I'm telling you, I had the same experience in high school with my son. I was like, wait a minute. Like I want to go back to school. Like you've got all of
Absolutely.
these cool classes at your disposal. And he's like, like look at this. I had the same exact experience. That's so funny.
Yeah. And then like, so just a week ago, I had Kim Colazzo, and I think she was our connection for this,
I
come
love her.
and
She's the best.
introduce habitats to my second grade. And she was talking
Oh
about
yeah,
how she has her wandering journal, and she has her granddaughter that has her
yeah,
wandering journal. And she read one of her Emerson Blake books to the kids.
yeah,
And sometimes that's just the inspiration that these kids need. One of the
yeah.
girls went home and started her own wandering journal about the
Yes,
cardinals she was seeing in her backyard.
yeah.
And I'm like, this is what we do this for.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
ignite that curiosity. And
Yeah.
that's my biggest goal, is to keep kids curious, keep them wondering, keep them questioning.
Yes. Yes. Love it. How did you get into teaching? So what drove you to teach?
Well, that was a very roundabout
Yeah.
way I
Well,
got
you
there.
just told us like kind of like your why. So how did you get here? Yeah.
So I came into college after having the most awesome history teacher for 3 years in high school.
Mm,
Favorite teacher. I loved history, so I'm like, I'm going to study political science.
uh-huh.
Quickly learned in my first semester that it wasn't history and politics that I loved, it was the way I was taught and the teacher and his passion that
Mm,
really ignited my passion for it. But I didn't really like it at all.
right.
So,
Interesting.
um, science had always been like, it didn't matter the teacher I had in high school. I loved every science class I took. I ended up majoring in botany and microbiology.
Okay.
And
Botany.
my mom
Love it.
was very excited. She's like, yes, you can go to medical school. I'm like, no, I don't want to go to medical school.
I'm a botanist, mom.
I'm like, plants, mom, plants. Um, and she's like, but microbiology, you could go to medical school. I'm like, nah. So I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And my best friend's father at the time was a high school biology teacher. And he's like, hey, come hang out with me. So I went and observed, and I'm like, oh, this is great, teaching science to kids. And I'm like,
Yeah.
not sure about high school. Like, I'm not that much older than them, and they're way taller than I am. And so I ended up going back for a second bachelor's and did my master's at the same time in elementary education,
Excellent. Okay.
and did my master's in curriculum design because I thought that's where I wanted to go. And
Mm-hmm.
still, I do love the curriculum part of it. I love the coming up with the ideas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the putting them into action is great too, and seeing the kids successful. But when you start doing it and you have four classes of the same grade level, by that fourth class, I feel bad because I'm like, okay, I'm done with this. Let's move on to the next great thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you've seen it 3 times. You're done. You're like, I'm fried. I've had enough of this.
But yeah, that was my roundabout way of getting in. I wanted to fuse my love of science with working with kids because I did love how naturally curious they were, and science just it lends itself to that
Yeah.
naturally.
Oh, for
Uh,
sure. Yeah.
so that was my goal, but not a lot of schools, unless you go to a private school, have like elementary science teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm from the Buffalo area originally, and I did teach in a private school there, and was I started out as a fourth grade teacher, and then I did 4 through 8 science and social studies
Mm,
was what I
okay.
did there. And then I decided to get my administrative certification, and while I was doing that, I fell into the gifted education realm of things, and I'm like, oh, well, this is cool. So I've kind of been
Yeah.
all over the place.
Okay.
And
And then you
so,
got tapped for STEM.
and then I got tapped for STEM. So that was being in the right place at the right time.
And you enjoy the STEM role.
I love it.
Yeah.
I
It kind
wouldn't,
of blends everything you wanted to do, right? I mean, it kind of gives
it
you the
does.
opportunity to
And
be,
there was a 2 week period last year where I contemplated we needed another fourth grade teacher for this year. I'm
mm,
like, oh, if I could teach fourth grade science, I would totally do that. Like, go
huh.
back into the classroom. And then I'm like, wait a second. I have the freedom to develop my own
uh,
curriculum. We work
yeah,
together. I don't have to do the same thing every year.
that's
I
right.
don't have to necessarily do the same thing from class to class. If it doesn't
Yeah.
work out for one, or I know that one is going to need different tweaks, or I can differentiate across grade levels, but I have that choice of
Yeah.
what I'm teaching and how I'm teaching it. And I don't think I would, at this point in my career, ever change that.
That's so for teachers that are listening, like it sounds like, so what do you love? I mean, I think I know what you love about the role, the flexibility, it's nuanced. There's a lot of change. There's not one day might not look the same as the next day, right? You've got a little
Yep.
bit of latitude to do the things you like. What's challenging about being a STEM? Like when you first started, when somebody said, okay, Amy, it's STEM for you. What was the biggest challenge in the beginning?
I think the biggest challenge in the beginning was the lack of understanding from even the administration, but the teachers themselves. Like they're like, oh,
Hmm.
great. What is this that we have to do now? And I'm like, no, no, you don't have to do it, but you can come be a part of it.
Hmm.
And they didn't really have an understanding, and still teachers want to give too much help to the students.
Hmm.
And we have teachers that are like, well, you're not giving them enough information. That's not going to work. Tell them that's not going to work. No, let them figure out for
Figure it out.
themselves that it's not going
Mhm.
to work. So I've been doing that in our enrichment program for years,
Hmm.
like teaching that way. But to
Hmm.
get others on board with it's okay for them to fail here,
Yeah.
like it's good, and there's more learning going on from that than if you just tell them, well, that's not going to work, do it this way.
Yep. Do you have converts from teachers? Do you get them? I mean, do you get
Yeah,
teachers moving over to your side once they have the
slowly,
experience? Yep.
slowly,
Slowly.
slowly. Still,
Some
there's
more than
still
others, right?
teachers to this day that are like, no, we need to give them more support. Like they really don't
Mm.
need it.
No, they don't need it. Wow. So, okay. So when we talk about this, this is great, by the way. I enjoy this. So the pod, we're talking, I think we're talking to teachers that are maybe not teachers yet, or somebody thinking about being a teacher, or just entering in. What advice would you give? Let's talk about this because I know we keep hearing about the teacher shortage and all this stuff. So let's talk about those that are maybe on the fence are thinking about maybe entering the field. What advice would you give that person? What would you give him or her? What would you say to them?
I would first say, and I know this is going to sound kind of cliche, but
Mm-hmm.
you really have to know and understand your why of why you're thinking of going into it.
100%. Yep.
Um, I actually, my daughter just graduating in with a degree in elementary education.
Oh,
And
okay.
when she first said she was going to do that, I said, "Are you sure that's what, like, don't just do it because that's what you know, because that's what I do."
Right. Right.
I said, make sure you're going into this for the right reasons because there's days it's not easy. Not every day is going to be easy. And people think, oh, you're working with elementary kids. Ah, that's easy. No, not every day is going to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but always know if you know your why and you can go back to that, that can
Yeah.
help get you over that hurdle.
Sure.
Um, I would say building relationships
Mm-hmm.
is key, not only with students, not only with colleagues. I think the most important relationship starting out in a school, your secretaries and your custodial staff, because
Mm.
they will save you so many times if they're on your side.
How,
Like,
give me an example. How will they save you? So I like this because I haven't heard that one yet. So tell me more about this.
Well, just like I made it a point when I came to Forts Ferry and I was going to be here full time. Like our head custodian, I talk to him every day. I find out how
Hmm.
he's doing. I build those relationships.
Yeah.
One day, 5 minutes before I had a class coming in, I was cleaning out my fish tank and I spilled like a gallon of water all over the floor. And I'm like, I have kids coming in 5 minutes. I cannot clean this up with those brown paper towels that
Yeah, I love those.
I'm like,
I get the
Ed,
visual.
please help me.
Ed comes a
And
running,
like
huh?
he would drop what he's doing and he
Yeah.
comes and he cleaned it up and I was
Oh,
ready to go when those kids walked in the door.
it's great.
But you have to have that relationship with them
Yeah. Yeah,
in
for sure.
order for them to um I would say no one, no student, no teacher comes into a classroom as a finished product. Evolve.
Hmm.
Don't be afraid to learn from your mistakes, learn from others, learn from the students. Like you're not a finished product. The one thing I stress in the innovation lab. You're never truly done because you can always improve something.
Sure. Sure.
Um, just because you completed the requirements doesn't mean you can't make it better.
Right. Yeah, I've
And
heard that.
so I think the best educators are those that are willing to evolve, always willing to learn new things.
Hmm.
Like I said, I would go back to college. I'd go back to high school
Yeah.
if I could.
So much cool stuff
Um,
going on, right? Yeah, so many cool classes.
but don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
I see so many young teachers come in and they're like, no, no, I've got this. I've got this. I don't need any help. But you can tell that they don't got it.
They don't got it. Right,
But
right. Do you
I,
watch and go, oh, they need help, but they didn't ask. So,
like, and just really don't be afraid to ask for help.
yeah. Yep.
You're not going to be looked down upon for it. Like, you're new, you're brand new, you're just getting into this. Everybody needs a leg up.
Sure. So you find those people. I've heard a few things. I think this is maybe our 30th podcast. And so I've got to talk to like, a bunch of people. And a few themes that I've heard is you don't come in expecting to and try to replicate the Pinterest classroom because you're not going to do it on your first day, year, month.
Those
So don't
aren't
try
real.
that. Like those aren't real. And then the second is find your support. Find your mentors, your people that care, that want to help you, that want to give you a leg up, that have you. The third thing I've heard is, and this is a little more negative, is stay away from the negativity. Watch the lunchroom. Be careful of who. It's like anything in life, right? You the proximity principle is true, right? Who those you
Yep.
spend time with tend to rub off on you. And so if you're around the negative people, it's going to feel quite negative. If you surround yourself with people that are positive and want to help out, you'll have much more of a positive experience. So yeah, I've heard those are great. So that's really interesting. So I keep hearing these themes, and I think that's important for people that listen to this frequently. They will start to hear these themes, right? And that I want to
Yep.
connect those dots to make sure that people find that and go, okay, that's my thing. Looking at the time. So I want to talk about this. Where are we going? What's making you excited about education? I know I am knee deep in the ed tech world. It's a little tumultuous out there right now. The Department of education as a whole, different states doing different things. I know I'm here in Jersey, extracurricular programs in my district. My son's out of school now, but if it were today, I'd be kind of mad. They've been, canceled. Budget cuts and all this stuff over here in
Right.
Jersey. What are you seeing? And it's easy to get negative. So what I meant by all that is what makes you excited? What are you positive? What do you feel optimistic about?
I'm optimistic. I guess in my world here in STEM and being connecting with people through Facebook and Instagram, there's so many of us out there that are doing this at the elementary level. And I
Hmm.
think that is amazing. We're giving these kids hands on learning, teaching them to be critical thinkers, bringing in real world problems at a young age where some of the teachers with some of the projects I say we're going to do, they're like, oh, they're too young for that. I don't think they're going to be successful. I
Hmm.
don't think they can handle it. These kids can handle a lot more than what we're giving them. But I think we're
Sure.
slowly seeing that. And with all the coding and the technology and everything that is out there now, that we're seeing kids being able to use this in very meaningful ways.
Mm.
I don't think we need to be afraid of it as much as some people are.
Okay.
Um, but being that we're bringing STEM into the youngest ages, preschool, kindergarten, first grade, they're
Yeah.
doing this hands-on problem solving. Um, it's my hope that we're building a generation that's going to be more curious and critical thinkers
Yeah.
who won't just be we're preparing them for the future, but hopefully they can go on to shape the future and be successful. I'm
Ah,
worried about
yes.
some of those high school, middle school kids right now, but I think we'll bring them along.
Yeah, we'll bring them along. Look at these guys. You're bridging the gap, right? I think that's
Yep.
great. So yeah, I think more of what you're doing. It's amazing. I love what you're doing up there. Thank you so much for being on. I'm going to leave it at that because I thought that was a nice
Okay.
parting. Optimism is let's get more hands-on, more curious, younger.
Absolutely.
If people are listening, superintendents, things like that, let's bring innovation labs into your schools. More free play, more unstructured challenges, teamwork, get them off the screens, get them out of the seats,
Absolutely.
have them building. I love it. I love it. So this is good. Amy, it's really been a pleasure to meet you finally after all
Thank you
these years
so
of
much.
online. We'll
I
keep in
know.
touch for sure. It was just so nice. This was great. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye bye.